No, good, thanks. Thank you, Kurt, for that introduction. I'm Sara, I'm an alcoholic.
Hey,
Super nervous, but my sobriety date is March 2nd of 2024. So not quite a year, but almost. But like Kirk said, like I've been in and out of these rooms for about the last 8 years. And when he asked me to speak, I thought, gosh, I'm not qualified. Like I've been trying to do this deal for so long, and I'm just now coming up on a year. I just didn't think like, what could my story possibly mean to anybody? But if you're anything like me, when I first came in these rooms, I wanted to die. And the fact that I've been, and everyone kept saying like, just keep coming back. And the fact that I've done that is the only reason why I'm alive today or not in jail, because that's the way I drank. That's most certainly where I would be right now if I didn't see, like, I would come into these rooms and I would have these little glimmers of hope, and I would see what my life could be like sober, and decide I didn't want to do that. But I kept coming back, and you hear that a lot in the rooms, and that's just what I did. They couldn't get rid of me, but I'm thankful that I've done that, and I know that whenever I would come to a meeting where there was a speaker and they had relapse in their story, it really meant a lot to me, and it gave me a little bit of hope that maybe one day I could figure this deal out. And so hopefully there's something that I say tonight that means something like that to somebody else. So I am a member of Primary Purpose. If you're all the way over in Southern Pines, we meet on Monday and Thursday nights. Please come join us. We're at 7 p.m. I'm really grateful to be at the Wilder Building. The Wilder Building does mean a lot to me. I love that you can come to the Wilder Building on any given day and there will be a meeting of AA. I know that there's been a lot of times in my sobriety where I needed that. This building to me symbolizes hope to a lot of people in Moore County that are suffering from this disease. So thank you, Kurt, for asking me to be here tonight. With that, I just kind of get started. I was raised in Anchorage, Alaska. I'm one of 5 children. I'm the youngest of 5 children. I came from a really good family. They taught me right from wrong. I was raised in the church by one family member. My dad never went to church. My dad was an alcoholic. I didn't know that growing up because my mom really protected me from that. Like, she really shielded me from that. But looking back on it now, knowing what I know now and, what I have become, I can see little things. I remember one time that my dad ran into our house, like when he was trying to park the car in the garage. And I thought, well, anybody could do that, But, he was a good dad. He was at almost all of my things, My parents had a weird relationship. I don't think they really liked each other that much. So I was either with my dad or my mom. So, but my dad was a good dad. I do remember one thing that I'd like to point out. Like, one thing about when I was little where he really scared me is my mom was gone away. My mom was really involved with the church. My dad was not. So my mom was gone away for like a church retreat, and my dad came in and he told me that he was going to die. He was upset and he was crying, and I was probably like 7 or 8. And, he just said, I'm going to die in a couple days, and how much he loved me, blah, blah, blah. And, that really scared me as a little girl. And I remember as soon as when my mom got home, I ran out to the car and told her I was like crying, and I just thought she was mad as hell. But she went inside and had some words with him. But she was really mad that he did that to me. But that's something I'll always remember. And I know that he was drunk when he came in and said that to me. But so yeah, I was, like I said, one of 5 kids. I was the youngest, so I was a daddy's girl. And even though my dad was an alcoholic and my mom really protected us from that, like, there was still, drinking was still a big part of my family. we did it at almost all the holidays. My parents would have parties, and there would always be alcohol. It was nothing that was frowned upon in my family, I guess. So my older brothers and sisters were quite a bit older to me than me. So when I did start drinking, it was very accessible to me. I either my older sister would buy it for me, or I lived in Alaska back in the day, so it was real easy for me to take my sister's stuff down to the DMV and get a fake ID, which back then made me like a pretty popular girl at school. But yeah, I mean, it was like I didn't start drinking because I was trying to escape anything. It was just fun for me. I loved everything about it. I did it any chance I got. We back when it was like we would go to keg parties on the weekend, and like I was really good at beer bongs and just all the things. It was just fun. And that was just high school for me. I got out of high school unscathed. I will say this about my drinking. Pretty much from the start, I was a blackout drinker. I never really just drank one or two. Like I said, I was doing beer bongs. That's just how I drank. That carried with me throughout my drinking career. Is like I just couldn't get enough. Which being a girl, put me in some pretty terrible situations when growing up in high school. So, I have boys. I'm glad I don't have girls. If they were anything like me, but yeah, I managed to get through high school pretty unscathed. I did get suspended from school for bringing alcohol to a homecoming dance, but that was really about it. I remember, being the cops pulling us over when we were kids and just basically telling us like, hey, you better walk home. We're going to drive by this car, all night long. And if it leaves, we're going to call your parents. So, I mean, but I grew up back in the day where, it was a different time for sure. But so I carried on like that through, I had big dreams when I was young. Like I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my life. I hated Alaska. I knew that I knew that I was going to leave there as soon as I graduated. I wanted to move to California for some reason. I had never been there. I wanted to have 3 boys. I wanted to be married to a dentist. I wanted to be I wanted to be a dental hygienist. This is really going to date me, but I wanted a black Geostorm. And I know they don't make those anymore, but that was the car I wanted. But never in my life thought that I would be the girl that would be in and out of treatment centers, that I would go to jail, that I would spend a lot of time in psych wards and detox centers. I never imagined that that's what my life would become. So I got married right my first year in college. I married someone who liked to drink exactly like I did. So that did not last long. But I did get a little boy out of that marriage, and I'm really thankful for that. But as soon as that ended, I moved to California. My son was 2 at the time, and I married a Marine, and I spent probably 10 years in San Diego. And, at this time, I always think it's when I hear people tell their stories about when they were 21 and they thought, like, man, I have a problem with alcohol. I just thought, gosh, at 21, I was just getting started. I never really had any inclination that I had a problem. But I was drinking more. I still wasn't in any real trouble. Like I said, I had a little boy. I felt like I was really responsible. I did get a job in a dental office, which made prescription drugs really accessible to me. So I had a little run with that. I don't know why I was able to stop that and not, why it's so hard for me to stop to not drink alcohol, because I think I just got scared because I was, writing prescriptions to myself and running out of people to write prescriptions to. I had about a 2-year run with that and was able to just walk away from that and not have any issues. But I always had alcohol to fall back on. So I moved to California and I got married. I got married right after 9/11, and so my husband was gone a lot, um, which, you know, I didn't have any accountability there. I didn't have any family there. I tended to make friends that like to drink like me. So um, I worked for a little bit until I had my second son, and then decided to stop working. And me and my friends we would do, like, we thought we were these great moms. We would take our kids to the beach. We would go to SeaWorld. We would do all these fun things, but there was always alcohol involved. I did not want to do anything unless there was alcohol there present or I could bring it. My whole life focused around that. And if you didn't drink, I didn't want to be your friend. And so, I mean, that's just kind of how I was in California. I didn't get into any trouble, but I mean, it's not for lack of not doing bad things. I mean, I got into the car with my kids a lot, drinking. We went to all those places I had one friend in particular, like, we just always had our backpack, and we would always just have these big old water things full of Red Bull and vodka, and that's how we would get through the theme parks. But I I was just kind of, I mean, there were times where I'd wake up and I'm like, man, I'm starting to feel like crap, and do I have a problem? Like, I drink a lot, and but like I said, I wasn't really getting into any trouble. Um, that all changed when I moved to North Carolina. I did not want to go to North Carolina. I loved living in San Diego. I liked my little bubble down there. And when my husband said we were moving into North Carolina, wasn't I mean, and that was just even further away from my family. At that time, most of my family was still in Alaska. But so, not to blame it on that, but I mean, I didn't come to North Carolina like, I was kicking and screaming. But that all changed when I met my neighbor. I moved into my neighborhood, and before I could even see the inside of my house, my neighbor came over and asked me if I wanted to drink. And I was like, yes, you're my girl. So, and that was just how that whole neighborhood was kind of like that. We would do play dates, and like, everybody liked to drink like I did. So, but I was having a hard time keeping up with these girls because they were able to get up and get their kids to school and go to the gym and do all these things, or they had jobs. And, I was struggling. And, that drink that I would pass out to the night before on my nightstand, one, it seemed like a waste of alcohol to throw it away. And two, it was something that I was starting to need in the mornings to get my day started. And that kind of just turned into a mess. So I started drinking almost 24/7. And I remember my mom eventually moved. She moved to North Carolina with us because she wanted to retire. She just wanted to be able to help me with the kids. And I'm sure a little part of her was, just kind of like nervous about, me being alone with the kids so much. And everybody else was starting to notice how bad my drinking was getting, but me. And if you called me on it, I remember the very first time I ever wound up in detox or the psych ward was my mom was saying that I had a problem with alcohol. And I was like, I was like, you have a problem with alcohol. You drink every day. But, it was just this big fight. And I told her I was going to kill myself. If I'm such a bad person, I'm going to kill myself. And I didn't know that will get you into the psych ward. So I woke up there, and I didn't know those kind of places existed. So I woke up there, and I didn't know where I was. And, I just remember them, like, I remember hearing my name over the intercom in the morning, like, Sara Plummer, come get your breakfast. And I was like, I think I'm in a hospital. Usually I think the food's supposed to come to me. So, I wandered out there and quickly realized where I was and that they weren't going to let me leave. And I was really, really unhappy about that. And, as soon as my 3 days were up, whatever, I left there, and I was mad as hell. And the first thing I did was drink. No one had thought to, like, get rid of all the alcohol in the house. But, and that was just kind of how my life started to go. Started to in and out of the psych ward, and people are really starting to tell me you have a problem. I'm deep down thinking I have a problem, but so I went to my first treatment center. I went to Wilmington Treatment Center. That summer I moved out to North Carolina, and that just turned into a nightmare summer for me. But I went to that treatment center, and I really didn't go there with any intention to get sober. I just wanted to appease my family. I kind of wanted to see if I could make it a couple days without alcohol, because it had been so long outside of pregnancy that I hadn't had a drink. I was drinking every day. And so I thought, well, maybe, 30 days would, do my liver some good. I don't know, maybe I'll feel better. But I went to that treatment center, and I just went there with all the wrong intentions. I quickly made friends there. I thought they were my friends. I'm going to call them my friends for the sake of this story, but made friends there, and I got home and I made it the 30 days. I know that AA was presented there. I know that the big book was probably talked about, but I don't remember any of that. I got home and I lasted about 4 days. I got into my car one day to go get gas because everybody was really watching what I did at this point. Is she going to drink? Is she not going to drink? So I said I was going to go get gas one day, and somewhere between the gas station and I don't know, I called one of those friends I made in the treatment center and disappeared for 4 days. I woke up. The only reason I know what day it was that I woke up was because there was fireworks going off, and it was 4th of July. I was at the beach somewhere. I had no idea where I was. I knew the beach was kind of far away from Southern Pines. But I can't even describe the place I woke up in. That little girl that had all those dreams back in Alaska, I woke up in such complete filth and disgust and around people that were doing horrible things. And I woke up and it was really that whole 4 days I have no recollection. And thought, I was scared when I woke up and realized where I was and what I had done, and thought God, it's been 4 days. And went back home. Finally, I called them, and they're like, "Just please come home. We've been so worried about you." And I was like, "I would love to come home, but I have no idea where I'm at." I was all the way out in New Bern, but so I was pretty far away from home, and went home, dealt with all that, but quickly, I would just. That whole summer, I would just disappear for days on end. And my husband was deployed. My mom was at the house with the boys. But I would just I thought that was great. All these friends I made in this treatment center. We're going to go do this and that. And we're going to try to get sober. But we were not being sober at all. And I was doing horrible things. And I got home one day. And just something felt different about when I got home that day, and I noticed that some of my kids' stuff was gone, and my mom had taken my kids, and she took them to Alaska, and her and my sister said, we're scared for them, and my sister said, you're just not welcome here unless you can try to stop drinking. Don't even think about coming to the state of Alaska if you're not sober. And I was so mad about that for so long, and I had a big resentment about that. But now this time around, I look at that and I thought, how lucky I am to have a sister like that. How lucky my boys are that they had someone that would protect them, even if it was from their own mother. Because that summer was a horrible, dangerous summer. I wrecked one of the cars, and actually one of my friends from rehab wrecked the car. And in the state of North Carolina, since I didn't report it as stolen, that my insurance wouldn't pay for it. So that was a tough phone call to have with my husband. But and so my kids are in Alaska, and I stay. Like, I don't go to Alaska right away, and it really pains me to say that today. Like, there was 2 weeks where I thought, now I can do whatever I want, and I don't have to worry about what I'm doing or who I'm hiding it from. And for about 2 weeks, I did just that. And I remember the moment I had. I was walking through a grocery store parking lot and thought, "What are you doing, Sarah? Like those kids are everything to you, you know." And so I called my sister and my mom, and they got me a ticket to come to go back to Alaska. The deal was, like, I had to go into another treatment center when I got there, and I was happy to do that. I mean, I had woke up enough to think that. Um, like, those are my kids. And but I'll never forget when I got off that airplane in Anchorage, and my kids, like, hiding behind my mom's legs. Like, that hurt. Like, they were afraid of their mom. And so I went to the treatment center there, and they enrolled my youngest was starting kindergarten, so they had him enrolled in school because the plan was that we were going to stay there for 3 months and then go back home. But I went to that treatment center and got done with that, stopped at a liquor store on my way, told them everything they wanted to hear, and convinced them that I was good. We're going to go back to North Carolina. Things are going to be good. Like, I'm not going to talk to my friends that I made in rehab. Like, I finally realized that was a bad idea. And so went back to North Carolina, and I never told anybody that I was going to stop drinking completely, but I realized that I had a problem and that I was going to try to control it. And that turned into about 6 years of just misery. That turned into me hiding it everywhere. I would pretend, and I didn't go do anything because I didn't want to get in any trouble. I didn't ever want to lose my kids again. So I stayed home, and I tried to be like the best mom I could. And I just isolated myself from everybody outside of school and friends or their friends. I didn't have any friends anymore, but and my husband was still gone a lot. My mom is just, I don't know, hanging on by a thread. But I mean, so I'm still drinking. Like I said, I'm just hiding it everywhere. I had it hidden all over the house. I would go to the grocery store and, like, get those boxes of wine and take the little bag out and put it at the bottom of my purse. Like, I had it everywhere, and I had it hidden strategically all around the house so that in case somebody found something or I forgot where something was, I would have another stash, because at this point in my life, the thought of not having alcohol in my system was horrible. I was so physically dependent on it. I would wake up in the morning, I would have to drink just to settle my nerves, or I would drink and I would get sick, and I would, just to keep it down, like, I would have to do that and then get my kids to school and come home, take a nap, usually, get them, drink until I passed out, put them to bed. And, I'd wake up probably about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning and have to drink again. Completely miserable. I looked and felt like crap. I would do anything that you asked me to do. If you told me that I needed to go to church and be sober, like, I would go to church, but I would have alcohol in my purse. Or I would go see a counselor, and I would lie, and I would not tell anybody how much I was really drinking. So, I mean, none of that stuff worked. And I would drink. I was starting to get suicidal. So I was hurting myself a lot. I mean, I have cuts all over my arms and my legs from trying to hurt myself. And that always just got me back up into the psych ward. So I have spent so much time up there. It means a lot to me today to be able to go up there and kind of just share my experience. But, so about 6 years of doing that, and, like, I'm just living this horrible existence. I have conceded to myself that I'm going to die an alcoholic, and that my kids are going to bury me, and it's just going to say, like, my mom died a drunk. And but because I couldn't stop. Like, I just couldn't do anything to stop it. And as much as I loved them, I couldn't stop for them. And I remember every time I'd go to the psych ward, I'd go up there and talk to all the doctors, and I would tell them how depressed I am. And, I had so many diagnoses, and, they would give me all this medicine, and I would never take it. And I was never honest about how much I was drinking. I'm sure they knew, like, I'd always go up there, with the blood alcohol content. I don't even know, but I never was up there sober. So they knew what the problem was, but I couldn't be honest about it. So, and this is just a miserable existence. Like, I am not going anywhere except to go drink or get alcohol, hiding it from everybody. It's like, I don't know if anybody's ever lived like just a double life. It's so much work, and it's so miserable. Just not be able to be honest with someone and not share that with anybody. But, like I said, I would just had all these ways that I wanted to die. I just didn't want my boys to find me. I don't know. But, it was like, it was Mother's Day weekend one weekend, and, it was like the Friday before Mother's Day, which was on Sunday. And I was like, in a way, just completely miserable. Like I said, I really wanted to stop drinking, or I wanted to not drink like I was drinking. I wanted to be able to drink like I used to drink, and not be so miserable. Like, it just wasn't fun anymore. It was a necessity at this point. And I just thought, like, I don't know. And this brings me back to where I shared about my dad. Like, I was in bed, and my youngest came up to me, and I had gone into the bathroom, and I had taken all the medicine that the doctors had ever given me. Like, I had stockpiled it because, like, I had my alcohol. I didn't need all that. So, but I was at my end, and I did the exact same thing my dad did to me when I was a little girl. I told my son that, I was going to go to sleep and I wasn't going to wake up, and that I loved him, all the things that my dad said to me. And he got so scared and ran out to my mom, my poor mom. But, she comes in there and calls the ambulance, and I'm back at the psych ward. And, I don't know. I'm done. I remember some, like, nuns came into the site, to have, like, we have those little meetings all day long. I don't know who all here has been to the psych ward at Moore County, but they have activities for you to do during the day. And one of them was listening to a nun talk about, I don't know what she talked about, but I remember at the end, like, asking her, like, I don't know what to do. Like, I can't stop drinking. And she just could not relate. I left so defeated because, like, she was just like, I don't know. Like, I don't know why you can't just drink, like, water or tea. Like, that's what I drink. And I left there, and I was just, like, so defeated. And, 7 o'clock rolls around, and 3 guys from AA come up there. And out of all the times I had been up there, all the treatment centers that I had been to, they came up there and shared what their life was like and what happened and what their life was like now. And I don't know, in that moment, I heard a little bit of hope. And, they were happy. And that was something, those are 2 things that I needed in my life. And I heard that night something, and they had found a solution. They had used to drink just like me, and they seemed happy and free. And so I, like, just like I did to that nun, I immediately went up to them after the meeting and just kind of talked to them. They told me where they were meeting, and it was the very first time that I left the psych ward and didn't drink. I stayed sober enough to get to that first AA meeting, and it was that primary purpose. And it's been my home group ever since. Like I said, it was really hard to get rid of me. But I went there. It was a Thursday night. It was a speaker meeting, and another person shared their story. And I was just in a room full of people that drank just like I did. They did horrible things that I did. and they seemed happy. Um, it was not enough to keep me sober, but I definitely, I clung to that, like, keep coming back. And I did. I kept coming back. And I wasn't always sober. I sometimes had alcohol in the car. But I was starting to, like, listen to what they had to say. I found their stories intriguing and fascinating. And so, I mean, I was very overwhelmed by when they started talking about the book or the steps or the traditions. I didn't really, I didn't do anything that they recommended. I didn't get a sponsor. But I was starting to get numbers of people and, starting to talk to people, starting to talk in meetings. But like I said, I mean, I would be able to get some days together. And that was huge for me, just to have, 24 hours was a lot for me. And so I just kept going to those meetings. And like I said, I would get some sobriety time. And this was back, then we had Hurricane Matthew. And I don't know if everyone remembers, my power was out for like 5 days. And I was alone with my kids. And I had not been drinking, but I couldn't get the generator to work, and I was like on day 4. I was so frustrated, and I decided that I was going to start to drink, and so I started to drink, and I was just hanging out at home. Like I said, I didn't really do anything anymore. Because I didn't want it to get any trouble. I didn't want anyone to have any reason to take my kids away from me. So I really was pretended like I was this great mom, but. So I started drinking. My mom called me and she told me that her power was back on and that if we wanted to come take showers or just have electricity. And I was like, heck yeah, So like I hop in the car with my kids and, I was going to my mom's house, but I don't know where I got into my accident. It was not anywhere by my mom's house. But I got into an accident with my kids in the car. And I hit a guardrail. It was a single car accident, and I was sitting on the side of the road. And like I said, it was just a hurricane had just happened, so the police were kind of busy. And so I was sitting on the side of that road, and I don't know, like I don't really have a recollection of that night. I do know that I didn't think I thought I was sober enough to drive to my mom's house, but I don't really remember anything after the accident. I did call someone from AA. I had those numbers in my phone, like I was going to the meetings. I did reach out to someone in AA and kind of explain my situation. And one of those same people that came up to that psych ward showed up and brought 2 other people with them. And, they knew that there was nothing they could do to, I was going to go to jail. They knew that, but they, did their best to like sober me up a little bit when the cops got there. Waited until my mom got there to get my kids and, told me, when I got out of jail to come back to AA, maybe listen. I don't know. But, so I went to jail and I got out of jail and went to that meeting that Monday and, I didn't know what to do. And they're like, hey, maybe you should get a sponsor. So I got a sponsor. And she told me that I needed to go back to treatment. And I was like, no way. There's no way. The last time I went to treatment, I got into so much trouble. Like, I'm not going to do that. And, but once I saw my attorney, I was facing some serious jail time, even though it was my first DUI, because I had gotten into an accident and there were kids in the car. I was looking at almost 2 years. And, he told me that I needed to go to treatment and he could try to get me in front of a judge that would take that treatment as time served. Oh my gosh. I need to get sober. Anyways, so I went to that treatment center and then, I thought that I could have hurt my kids. I had driven with them a million times, but that just was pretty sobering to me. And so I went to that treatment center and I went in and every intent of like doing the best I could do this deal. And I did that. I got out of that treatment center. I went through all the consequences of that DUI. I went to jail. I lost my license. And I did that sober. I got really involved with my home group. I got a sponsor. I worked the steps, and I was able to stay sober for about 18 months. And they say consequences will get you sober, but they won't keep you sober. And so, and to be honest, like I was on some anxiety medicine that I probably had no business being on. In my head, thought it was okay because it was prescribed and I took it as prescribed. But, so, 18 months, I don't know, I eventually relapsed. And after that relapse, it just was really hard for me to get back on track. Like Kirk says, I've been in and out of these rooms for almost 8 years now, and I would get some time, and then I was trying to beat the game, like they say in the book. I was trying to beat the game, and I was trying to go back to when drinking was fun, and that had been so long ago. I don't even know what I was chasing anymore. But I mean, I did that and in and out of these rooms. But I have to say, I mean, these rooms really did save my life. I wasted a lot of people's time, and AA always, the hand of AA was always there for me. Always, I'd be that girl, and I didn't, picking up a white chip or going back in and saying that I'd relapsed kept me out of here for a really long time. And I would just encourage anybody, if you're out there and you're having to pick up a white chip keep you from coming back, like don't. I mean, these rooms, there's no judgment. But I mean, I did that for a while. I was in and out of AA. I eventually started working, and I got a job that I really enjoyed. And I was on a work trip, and I was in Bermuda. Like I thought, man, this is like that's what I've wanted my whole life. I have a good job. Like I'm drinking. My family doesn't know I'm drinking, so I think that things are good. But I'm there for 5 days, and I spent the entire time drunk. And I was sitting there, and I just had this moment of clarity on the beach. And I thought, you're gonna die. You're gonna die drunk, just like you thought you were going to all those years ago. And that's what your kids are gonna remember. And how selfish of you to do this to them again. Like, how selfish of you. And I don't know. I just had that moment of clarity on that beach. I got back to North Carolina, and I picked up the phone and reached out to somebody in AA and said, I need help. And they said, you know where to go, girl. And, from that day to this day, I haven't had a drink. And, it's because I came back and I was completely 100% honest. And like I said, those things that I was mad at my sister about, I just think like how lucky I am to have those people in my life that were strong enough to take my kids away from me, to protect them and protect me. How my mom loved me all those years, even like back when I was a little girl. She's protecting me from alcoholism, and then she did that for her grandchildren. So, I mean, I'm really involved with my home group. I'm so glad that I had those glimpses and moments, of time of sobriety that kept me coming back to AA, because it is just, it's really why I'm alive today. I would have died out there. And I will close with this, that my mom passed away about 2 years ago, and I was going through something